Manica, say why yo. La Manica, say why yo.
Let's go. The big best out there, let's go. The big best out there,
once you experience for yourself, you're always going to want to come back. Once you experience for yourself, you're always going to want to come back.
Everybody's at the jump. Everybody's at the jump. Wake me up.
say what yo. Dominica, say what yo.
Let's go, let's go. If it best let's go, let's go. If it best
Once you experience for yourself, you're always going to experience for yourself, you're always going to want to come back.
Yo! New K Boots Way, yo!
We got World Cup is expected for 2023. Final night, final night of 2023. Final night, final night of 5 Dominica. We try to come back and we have Dominica. We do
I love the energy that is having going on this weekend with the festival. Everyone is just having going on this weekend with the festival. Everyone is just in such a great mood. It's the place to be.
World Crown Music Festival was awesome, was an awesome music festival. Very first year. Awesome, was an awesome product from the very first year.
Wake me up! 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 Everybody's have to jump, jump, jump. Everybody's have to jump, jump, jump. Wake me up! Wake me up! Wake me up! Wake me up!
Life is all about choices. Your choice is all about choices. One of the most important decisions imaginable is one of the most important decisions. The Caribbean Examinations Council, that's why the Caribbean offers a wide range of certifications and offers a wide range of certifications and support resources to help starting with the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, starting with the Caribbean Primary Exit Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Caribbean Vocational Qualification, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification Secondary Education Certificate, the Caribbean Secondary Education Advanced Proficiency Examination, the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination Degree Program, CXC Associate Degree Program. We cater to learners from the primary to post-secondary levels, learners from the primary to post-secondary innovative certification, including all learners innovative certification. The choice is all learners and educators. The choice is yours. Start your career journey with CXC. Start your career journey. Visit our website cxc.org to learn. Visit our website cxc.org to learn. Life is all about choices. Your choice is all about choices. Your choice is imaginable is one of the most. That's the decision. Caribbean Examinations Council. That's the Caribbean offers a wide range of certifications and offers a wide range of certifications and support resources to help starting with the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment. Starting with the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, the CPCA level competence, Caribbean CCSLC, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, the Caribbean Vocational Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, the Caribbean Secondary Education Advanced Proficiency Examination, Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination Program, CXC Associate Degree Program. We cater to learners from the primary to post-secondary levels, learners from the on to post-secondary innovative certification, all learners innovative certification, choice of all learners.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We are elated to host the release of the results. We are elated to host May, the release of the 2024 examination cycle. May, June 2024 examination cycle offered by the Caribbean Examination Council. We welcome all those within our orbit. We welcome all those within our orbit. As we call this event. We are currently airing live from the State House. We are currently airing live from the State House in the Commonwealth of Dominica. In Roseau. I am your host, Jeffrey Blaise. I am your Chief Education Officer in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Chief Education Officer in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Honorable Octavia Alfred, Minister of Education, Human Resource Planning, Minister of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training, and National Excellence. Wenham Shepherd, Honorable Secretary, Wenham Shepherd, Education, Human Resource Planning, Secretary of Training and National Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training and National Honorable Greta Roberts, Minister for Governance, Public Service Reform, Minister for Governance, Public Justice Reform, Citizen Empowerment, Social Justice, and other ministers of government, other ministers of government, other ministers of education from across the region, other ministers of education from across the region, Mr. Robert Gist, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Mr. Robert Gist, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, other permanent secretaries, retired CXC council members joining us online, CXC council members joining us online, Wesley, Registrar and CEO of CXC, Registrar and CEO of CXC Executives, CXC Executives, Manning, who is the Director of Operations at CXC, Mr. Richard Rose, Corporate Manager, CXC, Senior Education Officer for Secondary Schools, Mr. Maxime, and other Ministry of Education staff, Ms. Giselle Alport, who is the Senior Administrative Officer, Mrs. Romualda Hyacinth, who is the UNESCO General Secretary Dominica, Monsignor Eustace Thomas, Miss Bianca Kenya Dyer, who is the Miss Dominica 2024, Abia Israel will grace us with the national anthem, principals of secondary schools, teachers, valedictorian and salutatorians of our secondary schools, students who are here with us this morning, parents, other invited guests, local and regional media houses, and we also welcome the tens of thousands of persons who are joining us online around the world live using the CXC platform www.cxc.org/CXCTV. Good morning and welcome everybody. It is my privilege right now to move a motion to adopt the aforementioned protocol as official for the ceremony. Notwithstanding, our esteemed speakers may, if they so desire, reaffirm the presence of members of our audience. To officially begin our program, we invite Miss Abia Israel, one of our rising stars in music, to lead us with the national anthem. Please stand as we
I'm of beauty, I'm of splendor, I'm to one so sweet and fair. All must surely gaze in wonder at thy gifts so
Thank you very much. You may be seated. Thank you, Miss Israel, for... Yes. You may be seated. Thank you very much. Okay, please stand again as we welcome, Monsignor Thomas to lead us in prayer. Would you like to stand?
I didn't mind them being seated.
Exactly.
I had a short statement. Thanks very much. So, my dear friends here and those listening to us through the various means of social communications, for the first time in the history of our country, we are privileged to have been chosen as a platform from which the results of the Caribbean Examinations Council, CXC, for the region will be released. This is indeed a red letter day for Dominica, since our guests will not only be privileged to end all speculations regarding the results of these regional examinations, but they will enjoy the beauty of our nature isle, perceive our resilience as a people, and marvel at the many developments taking place simultaneously despite the global financial challenges which affect us as a region. I welcome you, but especially some of our guests who have come here for the first time. Prayer. And now I invite you to join me in asking the Lord to cleanse this conference room and establish herein divine atmosphere. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Let us pray in the words Christ, the God-made man, taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Omnipotent, omnipresent Father, we humble ourselves before you, requesting your holy presence in our hearts and within these precincts. Walk beside us, Lord, as our exam results will soon be released. The work has already been done. The students placed their best foot forward and studied hard. And now we release all anxiety, doubt, and fear into your hands as we associate ourselves with the psalmist in Psalm 37. Trust in the Lord and do good, so you will live in the land and enjoy security. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. And so, Father, as we await these exam results, ease the minds of those, the teachers, the parents, and the students who are nervously awaiting the hour of truth, and help them to be reminded that whatever the outcome, may your will be done, because you will never abandon us. Help those be guided accordingly from their own, if they do not obtain the results they desired, knowing that if they decide to go through with it again, they will do the best that they can, trusting you, Lord, the teacher par excellence, along the way. Whatever the outcome may be, may they pause and praise the Lord, saying, may my soul find rest in God alone. My salvation comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He's my fortress. I will never be shaken. And finally, we thank you for the examiners who spent long hours appreciating and correcting the work of students unknown to them with a sense of justice. Give us peace in our hearts, our bodies, our minds, our souls, as we wait patiently and with confidence what is in store for us, knowing that all things work together for good to those that love the Lord. Let worry, fear, and doubt flee at the sound of your great name. Omniscient Father, we present everything and everyone to you, In the Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
We thank Monsignor Thomas for invocation. You may be seated. We welcome Honorable Oscar George, who is the Minister of State in the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports and Community Development. And while we are to welcome, I want to recognize the presence of Lady Catherine Daniel, who was from a local registrar. She set the trend for the work of the local registrar in Dominica. We welcome you, Ms. Daniel. I think she deserves a round of applause as she was probably the longest serving local registrar. And as we proceed with our program, I now call on Mr. Robert Giss, who is the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, to welcome you. Mr. Giss.
The Honorable Octavia Alfred, Minister of Education, the Ministry of Human Resources. The Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training and National Excellence. Honorable Fenella Wenham Shepherd, the Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Honorable Greta Roberts, Minister of Culture, Youth, Sports and Community Development. Honorable Oscar George, Minister of State in the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports, and Community Development. Other government ministers present. Other ministers of education from across the region. CXC Council members joining us online. Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO of CXC. Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations of CXC. Other CXC executives and other permanent secretaries joining us here this morning. Dr. Jeffrey Bless, the Chief Education Officer. Mr. Richard Rose, the Corporate Marketing Manager for CXC. Other staff of the Caribbean Examination Council. Ms. Magali Celestine, the CXC Local Registrar. Other local registrars from across the region joining online. Mr. David Maximer, the Senior Education Officer for Secondary Schools, other Ministry of Education staff, Dr. Kimon Joseph, Head of the UWI Open Campus Dominica, Father Eustace Thomas, Abia Israel, Kiana Dyer, Miss Dominica 2024, principals, teachers, valedictorians, and salutatorians, students, parents, other invited guests, the media. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome you to the Caribbean Examination Council's official release of results ceremony for the 2024 May-June regional examinations. This annual ceremony, much like the CSEC exams, has become one of CXC's major events. And the last time I checked, this is viewed by over 18,000 viewers throughout the region and even beyond. Each year, the ceremony is held at a different member state. And so, when Dr. Rose called me, inquiring as to whether Dominica would be able to host this year, without even thinking of anything else, I responded yes. So, Dr. Wesley and the team from CXC, I want to assure you that the mere fact that you have landed in Dominica, you have automatically added 5 years to your life. If you have had the Tuapiton water, you have added another 3 years to your life. And if you get the opportunity to visit any of our beautiful sites, that's another 2 years to your life. So just by doing this, you have added 10 years to your life. After all, you are in the nature island of the world. And even more exciting, even more amazing, you are in the land, you are in the homeland of the world's greatest triple jumper, Octavia Alfred. I can assure you that during your stay, no matter how long or how short it is, you will be among the Caribbean and the world's warmest people. For those of you who are not able to be here with us, but are nonetheless joining us via the internet, I extend an invitation to you to come in to collect your extra years. This morning's ceremony will provide the opportunity to hear an analysis of the 2024 results and to witness the symbolic handing over of the much anticipated CXC results to the Honorable Octavia Alfred. This ceremony marks the culmination of 5 years of hard work, sleepless nights, and anxiety for students, teachers, and dare I say, parents. Many of the students here with us this morning, and many of those who are joining us virtually, have toiled and spent long hours and sleepless nights preparing to take their CCSLC, CSET, or CAPE examinations. I must remind them of a short poem by Henry Longfellow. The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. So the sleepless nights are not in vain. Congratulations are extended to all students, the teachers, their families who helped and guided them along the way. The road is never an easy one, and you should be commended for your drive to succeed and for staying on that road. No matter how rocky it may have been for some of you, like Longfellow hinted, keep toiling upwards. I think our students deserve an astounding round of applause. I am certain that many of them, along with their families, later will be celebrated, or as we say in Dominica, they will be siwoing. To those of you who might not be as satisfied with your results, don't give up. Learn and grow. Michael Jordan, the world's greatest basketballer ever, the GOAT of basketball, said, "I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. 26 times I have been trusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Don't view your results that you are not satisfied with as failure, but as an opportunity for further growth. It would be remiss of me if I did not congratulate Dr. Wayne Wesley and his staff at CXC for doing a tremendous job in the very critical role that CXC continues to play throughout our academic landscape in the region. Despite the many challenges, especially the transition to e-testing, hurricanes, attempts at cheating, various emerging situations in member states, your efforts to remain responsive to stakeholder concerns is in fact commendable, and you should therefore take a bow. I wish the CXC continued success, and may you move from strength to strength. I therefore extend a warm welcome to everyone here in this room with us this morning, and everyone listening via the radio, DBS radio, Kyrie, the internet. Welcome to the best country in the world. Welcome to the nature island of the Caribbean. I also wish to extend an invitation to you to join us in October, remember the month, October, when we will celebrate 3 nights of pulsating rhythm at our World Creole Music Festival. Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Now, thanks to Mr. Guest, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training, and National Excellence. Dr. Wayne Wesley holds the position of Registrar and CEO within the Caribbean Examination Council, Dr. Wesley continues to provide strategic leadership for the positioning of CXC as a regional enterprise with a view to impacting global influence. Welcome Dr. Wesley to the podium.
Good morning, all, and I trust you're all doing well. Certainly, I'm happy to be here. And you know, I think it might be a very good idea to have Dr. Jeffrey Biles wherever I go to read my bio. That was just so quick a while ago and efficient with reading that I said, wow, I almost got caught in my seat just waiting for him to finish. And then there you go, he just gets the bio. This is Wayne Wesley, your Registrar and CEO of the Caribbean Examination Council. Very good. And certainly, you know, I was just saying to the minister, it seems as if I have to come to Dominica more often, like twice a year, you know, yes. Because when I listened to the permanent secretary, who said, you know, just by coming, 5 years added. Just by observing the nature, another 3 years added. And just by visiting one of the 365 rivers running through Dominica, another 2 years added. That 10 years? There's no diet plan, there's no weight loss program, there's no science that will yield such great results. Already I'm feeling younger. You know, I was in discussion with several persons, and today I'm going to ask you to judge how well I did just before I start my presentation. But certainly at the hotel, I shouldn't give this away, but there is Michelle at the Fort Young Hotel I'm staying at. She's actually one of the hostess or the waitress in the restaurant, and she heard me making a particular phrase, and she sat me down and taught me well. So, Minister of Education, I'm trusting that when I make the attempt, that the grade will be A+. It will be a gold medal performance, right? Like Thea Alfond, right? It will be a Lafond. It will be a gold medal performance. But ladies and gentlemen, let me start by first recognizing the Honorable Minister Octavia Alfred, the Minister of Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training, and National Excellence, the Honorable Wenham Shepherd, Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Education, the Honorable Roberts, Greta Roberts, Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports, and Community Development, the Honorable Oscar George, Minister of State in the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports, and Community Development, other government ministers joining here and online, other ministers, Mr. Robert Geest, Acting Permanent Secretary, other permanent secretaries joining us here and online, CXC Council members, Dr. Nicole Manning, our Director of Operations joining us, and other executives of the Caribbean Examinations Council joining us online, Dr. Jeffrey Blaze, Chief Education Officer. We have Mr. Richard Rose, our Corporate Marketing Manager, joining with us. We have our local registrar, Magnalie Celestine, our local CXC local registrar here in Dominica. Other local registrars joining us online. Other ministries of education, technical persons joining in this room. As you can see, the list is long.
But I can't end without recognizing our chief examiners, our moderators, our markers, our teachers, our principals, our students, candidates who are eagerly waiting to get online right now and see their results, all parents and well-wishers. On behalf of Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of the Caribbean Examinations Council, and the council members, it is a pleasure being here in the country that reverses your age. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very important day within the region, and Dominica is the epicenter for the focus of all education ministries right now across the region, tuning in to see what is happening with education and the release of results. It is very evident to me that there is a great commitment to safeguard the environment and ecosystems of this beautiful country, as borne out by your national motto. And this is where the lesson comes in. Your beautiful motto. Après, bon Dieu, c'est la terre. Yes. After God, the earth. And I can understand why that is so. And again, since it reverses age, I'm all for it. After God, the earth. Right? So after God, the earth will take care of us and we will live longer. Very beautiful motto indeed. As you maintain your exemplary environmental stewardship. By the way, Minister, what was that? A, B+, get in there. My French, my Creole. Competent. I'm competent. Very good, very good. I like that, Minister. I like that. If you were my French teacher in school, I think I would be doing well. As you maintain your exemplary environmental stewardship, which stands as a global best practice, allow me to wish an early happy birthday on your upcoming 46th National Independence in November. And as you make your great leap into a future as glorious as the achievement of the gold medal jump by your Olympic champion, Thea Lafond Godson, we celebrate with you. I think you're going to say, and perhaps I should have added, then you would have clapped. We celebrate the youth that resides in Dominica permanently. I watched that remarkable post-event interview by Thea that went viral on social media. You all saw that one? Yes, where she clinically adjusted that reporter and by extension the entire world on the correct pronunciation of Dominica. And she did it with such intelligence, precise vocabulary that made Caribbean people everywhere swell with pride and joy. I was happy to point out on 2 of your radio talk shows yesterday that Thea Lafond, historic first gold medal for Dominica, is an iconic Caribbean achievement and is a significant subject material that must be included in our syllabus and history of the Caribbean. We celebrate with you because I know the Jamaican had to settle for second. Silver, but we celebrate nonetheless, right? Once it is from the Caribbean, it is for the Caribbean. There we go. It is with all this in mind that CXC is grateful to the government and people of Dominica for hosting this year's official release of results for the May-June 2024 sitting of our examinations. To my mind, this ceremony is about celebrating academic achievement and the gift of learning how to learn. And if I may borrow from Minister Alfred's own insights, and perhaps you're going to say it's the insights of the people of Dominica, but her insight said to us, today is also a day of celebrating Caribbean resilience. I was told the word resilience is a Dominican coined phrase. And so whenever I use it, I must give credit to academic integrity. I'm not going to plagiarize. I'm giving you the recognition and reference where reference is due. It is a Dominican word. In fact, I was saying to a group I met with yesterday that when I heard the statement, we're going to build back after COVID, we're going to build back stronger and better, I refute that statement. I don't agree with it. Because the systems we had then could not withstand what came. So why would we want to, and this is a different spin on it, why would you want to build back stronger the system that did not work? We now need to build back sustainably with resilience that can withstand whatever comes. And that is what I am supporting. For us at CXC, when we reflect on how early the annual hurricane season started this year, we must be thankful that the examination sittings were completed before Hurricane Beryl made landfall. At the earliest forming of Category 5 hurricane on record, the very first Category 5, Beryl did catastrophic damage to the northern parts of Grenada, devastating Carriacou and Petit-Martinique, and causing significant damage and dislocation for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the southern parishes of Jamaica. Yet, in the face of this, our examiners, moderators, supervisors, and markers demonstrated remarkable resilience and resourcefulness, many of whom left their homes to access electricity and the internet wherever available in order to complete the marking process. Ladies and gentlemen, I think they really need to be recognized. Their efforts in collaboration with the examination services team have ensured that all candidates and students across the Caribbean and further afield will receive their results today and on time. And we owe our examiners, moderators, and markers a huge debt of gratitude for their selfless work and commitment for the common good of the region. Yes. In short, while Dr. Nicole Manning, our Director of Operations, will present the results of the May-June 2024 examination sitting, I will just indulge you for a moment to make these general observations. CXC is committed to playing its part in ensuring high levels of literacy and numeracy among the region's students. English and mathematics are fundamental to learning and functioning in the world today. And let me say, I have no objection, and in fact, it is important for our students to be rounded, but I think it is critical and vitally necessary for us to give greater emphasis on English and mathematics and the competencies to be acquired, because these two subjects are the foundation on which anything else can be acquired or learned or achieved. So we need to give greater emphasis there. When we examine the results for the last 5 years, every year there are more students registering for mathematics than there is for English. And what we have recognized on average about 79,000 persons register for mathematics, and about 73,000 persons register for English. When you look at the performance of English over that period, the average performance of English is about 79–80%. But the average performance of mathematics is about anywhere between 55 to about 59%. In fact, if we really strictly apply the entire cohort, you're actually about 44%. This year, the performance in mathematics is a bit lower than last year. And Dr. Manning will actually show that. But what it says to me is that when we did further analysis as to the acquisition of 5 subjects or more, we recognize a certain percentage, about 6% of the entire population of persons registered for the exam getting 5 or more. When we indicate and do further probing, we recognize that when we make the restriction, 5 subjects, including mathematics and English, that drops to 4.9%. What that tells me, or tells us, is that from 2018 to now, every year we have been losing almost 11,500 students on average who will not fully matriculate into university because you need maths and English. You will have 11,500 students who will be underemployed if they are employed, because if you don't have maths and English, employers are going to pay you less. You have students who will require rework. In other words, you have to go and do the program over. You will have students who will not realize their full potential. And most importantly, it is having a negative effect on the economic competitiveness of the region, because you're having less students being able to drive the innovation that is required for the economy to advance and for critical thinking and problem-solving attitudes to be developed. So we are in a very challenging time that we need to give greater attention to mathematics and English. Let's ensure that students leaving the school system, if they don't have anything else, let's ensure that they are numerate and literate. To that end, the Caribbean Examinations Council has already commissioned a team to begin to develop standards for literacy and numeracy. And those standards will be used with the incorporation of artificial intelligence for us to be able to design targeted intervention for the areas and opportunities for development for these candidates. And how is it that they are going to acquire the skill? This particular program will be complementary with what is happening in the education system. Now, this is not intended to be the panacea, but I think as an examining body, we need to assist the system, the ecosystem. So it's not just the Ministry of Education, it's not just the Caribbean Examinations Council, it's not just the teachers, it's not just the education officers, it's not just the government, it's not just parents, it's not just community. Collectively, us together will have to sit down and figure a way to correct this serious problem impacting the development of the human capital of the region. We live in a digital world, digitalized world, and this is the only world our millennials know. It is a world that requires them to be digitally literate. And for regional education and training systems to rise to the moment, to plan, to formulate, and deliver appropriate models for learning that equip them to do their best and to strive. Our data support the fact that our students are aware of the new digital paradigm, as evidenced by the growing rate of passes in digital subjects. We know that these results can be far greater if we find a way to successfully engage our students to excel in mathematics and English. At CXC, we realize the exciting potential of artificial intelligence and tools like ChatGPT to be leveraged in the learning and development process, to excite and engage our students for all subject areas. As an imperative, we are now exploring AI tools to help the system to enhance the teaching and learning process. And soon you will be able to share what we have learned, we'll be able to share what we have learned and how to deploy for swift and vast results. Digital literacy is fundamental to how we build life competencies for creative thinking, critical thinking, learning to learn, communication, collaboration, and social responsibilities. We will all do more quickly to catch up with the rest of the world and to become truly globally competitive, to become truly the gold standard like Thea Alfond. Thank you very much. Lafond, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
We thank Dr. Wesley for his usual inspiring presentation, and we commend him for his efficient leadership of the Caribbean Examination Council. I'm sure you will agree with me that he's very inspiring in his presentation. Dr. Wesley, we thank you for your leadership. And Dr. Wesley made reference to the work of the local registrars across the region. Let me just take this moment to recognize our own local registrar, Ms. Margaret Celestine, who has been doing a tremendous work over the years in Dominica, and the principals of our secondary schools and all the stakeholders will attest to that. Ms. Celestine is really, really good at that, and I also want to commend the local registrars across the region who are with us online in this ceremony, and I would like to tell them to continue the excellent work that they have been doing, because I know it's a lot of work, because it's an intense period, very short period in which you have to complete all the examination requirements, and it creates a lot of stress, I'm sure. So thank you, Ms. Celestine, and your colleagues for tremendous work. Yeah, you could give her a round of applause. She deserves it. We acknowledge that this is the keenly anticipated moment for our audience, that of administration and presentation of the results of the examination. This will be done by Dr. Nicholas Manning, who is the Director of Operations at CXC. I wish not to stand between you and your eagerness to obtain this information. I know everybody is waiting keenly for the presentation and the related information. So I will take this moment to call on Dr. Manning to lead this segment of the program. Dr. Manning.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be a good student, but I'm going to do a little abbreviation here of what would have been done before. So let me acknowledge our moderator, Dr. Jeffrey Blaze, our permanent secretary, Mr. Robert, I think this is Gist, sorry, didn't do French at that level. My apologies, I should have acknowledged the Honorable Minister, Honorable Octavia Alfred, Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO, our Council Chair, Professor Hilary Beckers, and our Deputy Chair, Dr. Marcia Potter, and all Council members. Of course, the executive of CXC, our hard-working CXC team. We are a team just a bit over 100. Some persons think we probably are in the thousands. Just a bit over, not even 200, 130, Dr. Wesley, thereabout. They are hard. I'm telling you, the team works non-stop. And I really want to say thank you to the CXC team. I think I'm probably going to say that about 3 or 4 times. That's how grateful I am. Of course, our candidates, the people of a beautiful island, Dominica, wonderful, I think it's called the Nature Island. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. And of course, to the rest of the region that's looking on as Dominica has, I said to Dr. Wesley coming up that there are, I'm not sure if that was captured somehow, but it will be very important for that display with the valedictorians and the salutatorians as we entered. I thought it was amazing. I've never seen it done anywhere else. So I do hope that you share it with the rest of the region. I mean, it was really, wonderful. So let me begin the presentation. Okay, great. So I'm cued. I have a colleague over here who is helping me out. So for the overview, what I'll give you is just an overview of what would have happened within the May-June 2024 examinations. I'll then move on quickly to the regional results and then to share with you results particularly for Dominica. Again, for the first time in Dominica, we will be launching our electronic pre-slip, so that's something to come at the end of my presentation, but that's another historic moment that we will have today. It would be amiss of me not to mention our local registrars right across the region who work tirelessly. They're our hands and feet on the ground. You'd have heard our registrar mentioning Miss Celestine, our own registrar. You have to share her with us. And so we really want to say thank you to Miss Celestine and all the other local registrars. Now, as I begin the overview, I'll turn your attention firstly to the subject entries, candidate entries. Okay, so the first slide speaks to the CAPE subject and candidate entries. And as you're seeing, we had an increase in both the candidate and subject entries this year. So that's telling us, and I think I shared this in 2022, as we saw a signaling of, coming out of COVID. And this is, of course, testament of that again. However, for CSEC, we saw a reduction in the subject entry, but an increase in the candidate entries. That means while we have more candidates doing exams, we have less subjects being done by those candidates. As we move on, we look at the CCSLC entries, and we're seeing a reduction both in the subject and the candidate entries. And later in the presentation, I'm going to say something more about this, because The Caribbean Examinations Council provides a suite of products to the region that assists any territory in particular would be fortunate to do the complete suite, because both from a strategic analytical position as well as a policy position, you're able to analyze and to see the performance of the candidates from primary right through to secondary. And I dare to say those who go on to utilize other products we have in terms of achievement for the associate degrees. But I'll say something more about that at the end. So while we're seeing this reduction, it is something that we are encouraging our territories to increase your involvement in some of these products, because as Minister said earlier, the competence that you want to recognize the candidates can only be analyzed well if we can see, well, really at the peak level, if we can see that seamless trend. So we move next to the area of absenteeism. Absenteeism is not something that we're happy about, because once a candidate is absent, whether it is for paper 1, paper 2, or they did not submit an SB, you can well imagine that that candidate is going to be ungraded. And CXC is about affirming those competencies. We really do not want to have any ungraded. And Ms. Celestine will tell you that we work very hard to see how best we can recognize and accept as best as possible to make sure that we understand why those candidates are absent. So for CAPE, we saw an increase in the absenteeism. We saw the same thing also for CSEC. So for CAPE, we saw a 5% absenteeism rate, and unfortunately, this was more than we would have seen in 2023. For CSEC, we saw an increase likewise, but the rate was pretty much the same, 6.66 in 2024, 6.9% in 2023. So an approximate 7%, even though we are seeing a slight reduction. It's concerning to us because we see subjects, for example, lowest, yes, for the agricultural area, but areas like visual arts and so on, we saw the highest level of absenteeism. So it is really important for the member state to do that analysis against what is important for your industry to thrive. That's the kind of analysis that will be necessary. For CCSLC, we saw a reduction in absenteeism against what we would not stop there. We did examination surveys, and while we're not finished analyzing the data, we are already able to identify 5 of the top reasons why candidates have stated their reason for absenteeism. And as I'm sharing on screen, they would have said personal emergency, that's one of them, not adequately prepared. So a candidate believes that he or she is not adequately prepared and decides not to attend the examination. Now this, of course, is going to be, again, something that member states would have to look at, but regionally, giving that candidate support, whether private or in-school candidates, to understand what preparedness means. And as my mother would say, God bless her soul, you have already paid for it. So the worst you can get is an unacceptable grade. However, you may go, and as I can tell you, testament, that the Lord would have brought back things to my memory in examinations that I thought I would not have been so equipped. So I would encourage any candidate who selected that reason to say, give yourself a chance. At least attend, because you have already paid for it. Some candidates, unfortunately, would have had documented illnesses. Now, for these candidates, we do have something called compassionate consideration, and I'll speak about it a little bit more, share some more data, or otherwise commonly called hardships. So if, for whatever reason, a candidate would have been ill, they probably felt ill on the day of the exams, we do have a facility and our local registrars submit accordingly, as well as death in the family. And in sharing that information, we do take it into consideration, depending on how many components they would have missed. And of course, we are assuming at this point that preferring not to attend is different from not being not adequately prepared, because you could decide that you're not attending for various reasons. So as I have there as a note that we will do this is just preliminary, we'll do the in-depth analysis and share it with the territories so that you can do that deeper dive to inform you how you go forward. But it is important for us to view that. I move on to giving you a synopsis of the general administration, what we have as our electronic assessment, as well as administration using a new methodology, hybrid electronic assessment. Let me begin by providing some general information on the general administration as it would have happened in 2024. For this year, we reduced the examination duration to ensure that we had earlier release of results. So by 1 week, and you would have seen that we are releasing results earlier by 1 week. I must pause, however, to continue to encourage all member states as best as possible to be involved and to participate in electronic assessment. Because as this increases, you can well imagine our digital natives who have said to us when we do stakeholder engagements that this is their natural space. But I am aware that territories will have to put the necessary infrastructure in place. But as we spoke yesterday, Honorable Minister, we're not going back to pre-COVID days. We're prodding along as COVID would have forced us to kind of leapfrog in this area. So I must say congrats to Dominica, who is on this pathway, and we do encourage both Dominica and other territories to continue to enhance in this particular area. For the general administration, we did what we call the hybrid assessment, which I'll speak about, and we had a pilot in January, and we did a bit more in May, June. So we analyzed that information, and we thought it went well. Unfortunately, this year we had a few suspected breaches reported, some unfortunately malicious. It is something, I continue to say to our team, and the team we often refer to is the educational ecosystem. We work together as partners. It's not about the Caribbean Examinations Council alone. It's not about the Ministry of Education. It's about every community member, parents, everybody together will have to treat with this, because once it happens at this level, it continues right along the fabric of the society. Now, as a part of finalizing our results, we will continue to do the reviews, and any action that needs to be taken, we will do it at the end for certification. So it's important to note that we saw, I'm just going to give you one example, for example, with the candidates for modern languages. Candidates were trying to memorize what was the situational analysis and sharing it with other candidates. So CXC in the middle of that had to push out additional questions equivalent to what others would have done. So it would not have affected the quality of the process. But every time we do that, we hit the pockets again of the Caribbean Examinations Council. And I leave that, if I'm sure if I was to pause and give the registrar this podium, he would preach another gospel. But I think that's for another time. Examinations were impacted by many things: bomb threats, weather conditions, and other activities that would have happened across several territories that are named there. But as I said before, CXC knows how to manage hardships. I move on to speak about the electronic assessment. Whoever moved that a while ago, thank you very much. The electronic assessment. So all our multiple choice components, the component of that exam, is currently offered via our platform, electronic platform, facilitating that kind of assessment. We have the structured paper for 5 subjects, for example, digital media, animation, game design, information technologies, paper 3.2 in particular, and so on, are offered only electronically. And we are looking to increase that kind of offering. This year we saw approximately 53% of the CSEC candidates who indicated an interest to do the MC component via the e-assessment modality actually doing that. 69% approximately for the CAPE candidates doing likewise. I will say, unfortunately, we saw a slight reduction in terms of the number of candidates overall sitting exams using the electronic assessment modality, but an increase in the CSEC, number of candidates doing CSEC against previous years. So I move on to the hybrid e-assessment quickly. The hybrid e-assessment as I'm showing you on screen, is a combination of 2 things. Now, we are conscious that not every member state has the various infrastructure in place to facilitate electronic assessment. And so, the CXC team would have designed what we are calling another innovative solution, where the territory can have the actual question paper, that component, reflected on screen, and the candidates answering as they normally do in their booklets. What that does for us would be several things. So what you're seeing on the left would have been what the candidate would see on the exam, and what you're seeing on the right is the actual answer booklet, just with the stem and the lines. There are no security risks where this is concerned based on our initial pilot. So our stakeholder feedback reflects that they would have seen, and this includes our local registrars, greater security of the examinations. So we would not have to be printing any exams, we would not have to be shipping any, there's no storage, so it would be cost effective and greater efficiency on both sides. Of course, the comfort level of the candidates, we had various responses, but I would say generally, accessing the questions online and writing in the booklet, they thought it was very useful, comfortable for them. Connectivity issues, but no negative impact. Why? Once the question paper is downloaded, there is nothing to be uploaded. So we just need to have it down. If electricity goes, we know most laptops can be preserved for a while, right? What if the candidates can't even they can use their tablets. You can just imagine it's a new era. So this is something that we believe will provide some continued success, as I have it there on screen. Last but not least, it's a soft introduction to electronic assessment. And so this is something that we're looking to utilize. Last but not least, in relation to this area, for marking and grading, there would have been no challenges marking the hybrid assessment, and the candidate's performance was consistent with the overall performance. In fact, for the candidates who did the hybrid e-assessment, we saw a very slight improvement. So let me hastily go to the school-based assessment. This is, of course, always a pet peeve for me because once a candidate does not submit a school-based assessment, and now we're not, as you know, from 2020, we're not looking for the scores, we're looking for the actual submission of the school-based assessment. So without that, the candidate will not get a grade. So here we're seeing two figures that you have to look at. The second column is showing the percentage of the SPA records submitted to CXC. Of course, we have seen an increase for CAPE, and when I show you CSEC, you'll see an increase also. But that 2.86% of the candidates not submitting to the teachers is where we have to do the roll-up sleeve. As far as I'm concerned, one candidate missing is one candidate too many. Likewise for CSEC, I did promise, and I'm saying we are seeing the reduction overall, increased submission to CXC, reduced the non-submission to teachers, but still, it is something that we do not want to encourage. Now I move on quickly as a part of the overview to the irregularities and hardships. Now for irregularities and hardships, we have two concerns. Let me tell you a little bit about irregularities. Irregularities are about candidates carrying their cell phones, candidates believing, unfortunately we had these cases here, impersonating another candidate. So for example, I am going to do the exam for Dr. Blaze, or Dr. Blaze is going to do it for me, right? So, that wouldn't work because I'm male and female, so probably Miss Celestine. Yeah. And you're finding that they're trying to pass off as another candidate. That's not good, but it happened, right? So, of course, the situation was identified and the candidate is not only disqualified, but debarred for 2 years. So it's a very serious matter, okay? Things like cell phones, we saw a lot of cheating this year. If you notice on screen, you're seeing a number, 54. Last year it would have been what? 36. That's a big increase. And candidates have to sign to agree, yes, this is what happened. So we're not just making it up. The supervisors and vigilators are not making it up. They are telling you, I did this. As well as they're caught, literally, with the phone, looking. One candidate said they were Googling the question. Unfortunate, right? It's not something we want to see, right? So, you know, I said it last year, and I'm saying it again, ethics, integrity, it's critical for the fabric of us as human beings, but more so, as Honorable Minister mentioned, the ideal Caribbean citizen. I've learned that it is not what you want me to be, but who I believe I should be. So it is not the fact that nobody there is looking. It's about me. And that ideal Caribbean citizen must stand out. And so I'm encouraging the region, encouraging our teachers and the system as a whole. Some of the things that are happening are not at the student base. And I'm going to encourage again. People of the region, ethics and integrity. If there is anything they must say about us, they must say that I want to hire you because you have integrity. The 478 hardships you're seeing there, we would have dealt with all of those. That's what I mentioned about the death in the family or sick illness or anything at all like that. The bomb threats, all of those we take into consideration. I'll move on to the actual regional results. So that gave you an overview from registration all the way through to marking. At this point, I would like to pause to join my registrar in thanking our examining committees, thanking our markers for giving us yeoman service this year. Without you, this would not have been possible. And so we just really want to say thanks to our markers who are knowledgeable, trained, standardized. They go through so much. So probably we have some in the audience, but we really want to say thank you. As we move to the presentation, firstly, we are showing on screen the entire suite of our products at this time, because CXC is doing more to come. And we move immediately to the CAPE results. Now you are aware that we have the first 5 grades are what we deem as acceptable grades. And so the focus will be on those 5. So the presentation I provide is just a synopsis of some of the subjects. You could not manage to get on, but just highlighting a few. And so I will begin with biology. So for biology, we saw a reduction in the overall performance this year, even though we had an increase in the number of grade 1, as well as some consistency there across the other levels. For Unit 2, we saw a reduction likewise for the Unit 2 in terms of the overall performance, but an increase in the grades, in the grade 1 again. For Caribbean Studies and Communication Studies, 2 key subjects, especially for candidates at this level, we saw an overall performance of 95%, a reduction of 2%, and again, an increase not only in the grade 1, but also grade 2. For communication studies, we saw an increase of 3%, both for the overall performance as well as for our grade 1s. We did see, you can see on screen, some increases at the various other grades. But it's important to note that you, Dominica, as well as other member states, will have to do the deep dive as to why we would have been seeing these kinds of changes. French Unit 1, 95%, steady at the Unit 1, a reduction at the grade 1. Likewise, for French Unit 2, we had a reduction for the grade 1, 10% in fact, but the overall performance in terms of acceptable grade would have been 100%. So in other words, all candidates would have gotten acceptable grades. And that's important to note. For Information Technology, Unit 1, we saw a slight increase overall performance, but of course you're seeing there an increase again at the grade 1 level. You see a lot of this as I go on. It's very interesting phenomenon where we're seeing a lot of the grade 1s increase generally, while you're not necessarily seeing that across the other grades. For Unit 2, we saw the stability carrying at 96%. We've been seeing that for about 3 years, as well as the grade 1 and 3 for the most part, and 4. Integrated math, we saw a marked improvement here from a 68% to 73% for these CAPE candidates, as well as an improvement you're seeing there for grades 1 and 2. So this is significant. Integrated mathematics is one of those subjects that they utilize to get the associate degree. Literatures in English, Unit 1, stability in the overall performance of 94%. And as we would have seen in 2021, we are seeing that 1% grade 1 peeping up there for this year. The last 2 years we saw none. So we give thanks for that. For the Literatures in English, Unit 2, again, we're seeing a 3%. Last year it was 0. This year we're seeing a 3%, so that's good. And an overall performance of 95% for the region. Physics Unit 2, a 97%. That's the overall performance. Slight reduction, and a slight reduction also for the grade 1. For the Physics Unit 2, we saw an increase from 23% to 32% for the grade 1. In fact, it's the best we have seen for the last 4 years. But the overall performance being 97%, a 1% increase over the previous year. For Pure Math Unit 1, we had an 86% a reduction from the previous years, not only on overall performance, but also for the grades 1. However, for the Pure Math Unit 2, we saw an increase of 3% on the overall performance and an 11% increase on the grades 1, and also an increase you're seeing there in relation to 5% on the grade 2. So overall, they did better. Tourism Unit 2, we saw a 2% overall improvement in the overall performance and a 1% on the grade 1. Similarly, consistency with the overall performance, but look at the grade 1s there. Generally consistent. So why this is important for us? Tourism is the mainstay of the Caribbean. We're not seeing, however, though, the registration numbers that we expect to see. So it's a discussion that we are having in-house because we want to understand why this is happening. It's important. It's our mainstay. So we need to have more candidates registered and also being successful. But this is good in terms of the fact that there's stability and improvement across the board. I move quickly to CSEC. Here, the acceptable grades 1 to 3. And so we move to biology. We begin with the biology. We're seeing again consistency for the overall performance of 76%, a slight increase in terms of the grades 1 and 2, but a reduction in grade 3. For Caribbean history, we are seeing an increase, in fact, the best we have seen in the last 4 years, something I know my chair will be very happy to see. A 4% increase and stability at grade 1 with overall improvement right across. For chemistry, another science subject, we're seeing a reduction overall performance, but an increase at the grade 1 level. English A, very important subject. You'd have heard the registrar mentioning this area earlier. 76%, while it's a reduction from last year, it still is very good as we have it over the period. The consistency at grade 1, while we are seeing a reduction at 2 and 3. Now, French, the modern language as we have it, we're seeing a slight reduction for the overall performance as well as the acceptable grades. Human and social biology, we're seeing an increase of 9% overall, an increase generally right across for grades 1 to 3. Human and social biology is pretty new syllabus. The first time would have been last year, January, I believe, and so this is showing some good improvement there. In fact, you're noticing that while it would have been new, I think it would have been 2023, so you saw the 71%, but you see the candidates getting used to the syllabus and the teachers doing very well there likewise. And of course, we don't want to forget our parents. Information technology, a reduction to 81%, and the grade 1, 2 reduction, but stability at 3. Integrated science, this was very surprising for us because this is usually stable in the 60s. We're seeing a reduction to 58%. Of course, the registrar would have mentioned mathematics. This is a sore point for us. Unlike English, you remember you saw the English A, that's English A pretty much in the 70s? Right, you're seeing the math here at 36% this year. I want to pause a little bit with this one though. So the 36%, if you notice there, it is less than last year. But you have to recall that as we look at as we do the analysis, and this is something, of course, each territory has to look at the grades, the grade 1s. You see that increase in the number, even though it looks slight. Remember, the population is almost 80,000. right? We are seeing that improvement there. So in some cases, you're going to find that in some territories you will find an improvement, of course, and in some territories it would not have been looking so wonderful. However, overall, we need to get out of this rut. So we have already thought of some new strategies that we're expecting to push out next year to see how regionally we can assist and move with the region in making sure that we see some improvement. Now, I have to be cautious how I use that word, making sure, because remember, it's an ecosystem. It's not about CXC, it's a teaching, learning, and assessment. So while this is one of the areas of concern, it is something that we have to do together. Office administration saw an increase in the overall performance, physics likewise, and the principles of, physics likewise. Unfortunately, principles of account saw a reduction to 67% from the 72%, with some stability at grade 1. Principles of business subjects, we saw stability at 80, and it's generally the same year on year. But social studies saw an increase to 62%, the best it has been over the last 4 years, with the ones moving from 1% to 3%. For the modern language, likewise, a similar reduction as we would have seen with French. Now, so that gives you a synopsis of the region and the work that we have to do, particularly how we do it together. I move to Dominica. So Dominica, I'll start with Cape, but I want us to just, one point that you have to understand, for Cape, Dominica has a very small population. So any change in an individual, in the performance of an individual candidate will shift these statistics really greatly. So please take that into consideration. I start with Caribbean studies. So you're seeing a reduction from 87% to 68%. For communication studies, a reduction from 95% to 76%. For the Information Technology Unit 1, however, we saw stability of 90%, as a performance you would have had from last year, and the 90% would have been good over the last 4 years. Consistent with that is the Information Technology Unit 2. All of your candidates got acceptable grade, 100%. Now, consistent with the region, you also saw a large increase with integrated mathematics, moving from 37% to 51%. If you do the math, you're seeing that a 14% change. I move swiftly to the CSEC level. Dominica's performance in chemistry, consistent with the previous years. You maintained the 82%, again, the best you have seen over the last 3-4 years, and as well as the ones. You're seeing the 16% moving to 22%. Congratulations. For English A, the stability of 84-83%, but what does that sound like? Do you remember what I said for the region? Correct. The region would have been 76%. Your performance is 83%. Likewise, you had an increase of a 1% on the grade 1. English B, likewise, 84%, a 10% increase overall performance, and a 4% increase on the grade 1s. Family resource management, 94%, the best you have had in 4 years. You would have seen an increase in the grades 1 and 2, a slight reduction in the 3s, but guess what? That would have meant the candidates would have moved up to the grades 1 and 2. That's marvelous. Food, nutrition, and health, 96%, the best you have had in 4 years. And you see the improvement in the grade 1. Always remember, when you see that improvement, you do the math. It could jolly well be that movement. So that's for you to do that deeper dive, but that's the initial interpretation we can have. For the human and social biology, like the region, you would have done very well in this area, but you would have moved from the 80s into the 90s, and 95% overall performance. Looking at the 1s and the 2s, great movement there. For information technology, 86%, a slight reduction there. Well, a little bit more than slight reduction, but you will do the math and see what's happening. Now, for mathematics, while you have stability similar to the other years, it is something that you have to look at. I think, though, that as we look at it, it looks similar, but I think it was, you have that kind of analysis that you'll do. I think it was about 38. I think there's a little amendment that needs to be done to that slide. I think you were 38%. So my apologies on that. Yes, you're a little higher than the region. My memory, that stayed with me. So my apologies. It's 2% more than the region. Office administration, 98%, a 2% increase overall performance. Physical education, you're doing the 100%, 99%, 1% difference. Not significant, statistically so significant. So is that the, yes, that's the Theo Lafon. Perfect, wonderful, wonderful. Physics, your 89% is shining very well. That 17% performance is very clear based on what you're seeing for the grades 1 right up to 3. Principles of accounts, 93%. Wow. Very well done. Principles of business, likewise, 95% overall performance. And those ones, 14%. That's a change in terms of the percentage. Again, while you're seeing the reduction on the 2 and the 3, you may have had that movement into the 1s. Very good. Likewise for social studies. Remember what we said for the region? This is far better than what we had for the region. 74%. The region is in the 60s. So this is something good. Probably you need to be sharing some information. Very good. So that's it for Dominica. We must say congratulations. In wrapping up, there are a few key points we have to share. In relation to the syllabi, as we would have had it in terms of new ones coming out 2024, meaning assessed in 2024, we like to highlight this because it's something that we want member states to keep note of. This presentation is already shared, so I won't go in too much of the details, but you see a little decline. Usually we see a pickup afterwards in terms of that. For the ones to come, this is what I want us to highlight, is the communication studies will be assessed for the first time, May, June 2025. Integrated science and social studies for the first time in May, June 2025. So please take note of that, as well as we have some 2026 revisions in relation to our syllabus. For CCSLC, we can never leave out that intermediate certification that helps as a stepping stone for our candidates. If I just want to highlight one component. So the English, if you look at the English, it's consistent in terms of mastery, that orange line, 3rd, 2024, consistent with what you're seeing with the CSEC. However, if you look at the math, there's an increase in the CCSLC, but not all territories are involved in CCSLC. So that intermediary check is a very good point to look at. And increased utilization of that product will do very well in terms of, doing that kind of analysis. That's stepping stone, right? So it's important. We share also with the region the CPA, while it's not necessarily one of the products you offer at this time. The Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment has 4 components: the language literacies, mathematical literacies, scientific literacies, social studies literacies. And I'm sharing this because a lot of this includes work done by the candidates in their own space. They do their own exploratory work. So the building of that self from the primary level plays a very important part, not necessarily at the summative level. Okay, so I want to share that. So if you look at the overall performance for the external assessment, again, you're seeing the primary exit assessment. Similarly, the pattern as you see for the CCSLC. Look at the language arts and the math. Okay? So you can see the improvements. I promised that I would have come back to it. Here it is. You're seeing the improvement on the CPA, and you saw the improvement on the CCSLC. So just imagine if we could do that full analysis. I remember some years ago, I think it was St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who could share a candidate who was top at CPA, top in CCSLC, and top in CSEC. It means that they could check the button right across. They could do the analysis, do the changes, do the policy amendments accordingly. So I just had to, I think it is necessary for us to share that information. Last but not least, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification. We had 3,631 candidates registered across 41 occupational areas. As we know, competence in these areas critical, and you're seeing we would have had, it's up on the increase when we compare with previous years, CVQ. And then, last but not least, we're seeing where candidates would have gotten some units. You're seeing the transcripts, 1,352, and 1,077 would have gotten the full certification. This is very important because qualifications like these are acceptable worldwide, just like the CSEC and the CAPE, right? So it's important for us to understand that for economic growth, this is a lot of vocational, I don't know if you know, I could preach vocational qualification, but I won't. It's important for economic growth. So the overall performance, as I close, for CAPE, we're seeing a 92.19%, a little slight reduction over previous year 2023, but better than 2022. And for CSEC, we have an overall performance of 69%, consistent with last year, but consistent with last year, but more than we would have had in 2021-2022. So, colleagues, permanent secretaries, honorable minister, educational ecosystem, we say the suite that is presented by CXC. I'm just highlighting a few: the CAPE, the CSEC, CVQ, CCSLC. They augur well as candidates move to get their certificates, diplomas, and associate degrees, also offered by CXC. These qualifications are more than just the results they receive today. I want to point that we are aiming strategically to equip the human capital of the region for entrepreneurial ventures, for employment, further education. And as I'm saying, it's more than qualification, but a pathway for the future of our candidates. This year, candidates will be accessing their preliminary results using what we call the electronic pre-slip. The electronic pre-slip. It's a downloadable, verifiable, digital version of the pre-slip. And I'm going to have a video played, so we have sent out already frequently asked questions and so on, for you to utilize that. And we're going to invite, I think, one of our candidates to access their results and for the minister to do the verification. So while they're queuing up the video, You can put it online. And while you're queuing up the video, let me say one thing. Candidates, you can now utilize this result by sharing it with employers and institutions and so on immediately. Over to you.
This is a video tutorial on how to access your CNC preset. First, navigate to the CNC's portal. You can do so either by visiting bit.ly/CNC-results or via the CNC website, cnc.org. Once there, select the exam results menu item, then click the link at the bottom of the page to enter the CNC student portal. Next, log on using your unique credentials. You can enter your 6-digit sector number along with your 10-digit candidate number. Or you may enter your work certificate. Next, this only applies to candidates from Trinidad and Tobago. Next, insert your last name.